Book 2, the Sitpa Bardo. This is known as the good head part of that called the profound essence of the liberation by hearing, the reminder. The clear setting face to face in the intermediate state when seeking rebirth, the obeisances. To the assembled deities, to the tutelaries, to the gurus, humbly is obeisance paid, may liberation in the intermediate state be vouchsafed by them. Introductory verses. Above, in the great Bardo Thodol, the Bardo called Coniad was taught, and now, of the Bardo called Sitpa, the vivid reminder is brought. The after-death world. Introductory instructions to the officiant, although, heretofore, while in the Coniad Bardo, many vivid remindings have been given. Setting aside those who have had great familiarity with the real truth and those who have good karma, for them of evil karma who have had no familiarity. And for them of evil karma who because of the influence thereof become stricken with fear and terror, recognition is difficult. These go down to the 14th day, and, to re-impress them vividly, that which follows is to be read. The Bardo body, its birth and its supernormal faculties, worship having been offered to the Trinity, and the prayer invoking the aid of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas having been recited, then, calling the deceased by name, 3 or 7 times, speak thus, 33 O nobly born, listen thou well, and bear at heart that birth in the hell world, in the Deva world, and in this Bardo body is of the kind called supernormal birth. Indeed, when thou wert experiencing the radiances of the peaceful and the wrathful, in the Coniad Bardo, being unable to recognize, thou didst faint away, through fear. About 3½ days after thy decease, and, then, when thou wert recovered from the swoon, thy knower must have risen up in its primordial condition, and a radiant body, resembling the former body, must have sprung forth, as the Tantra says, having a body, seemingly, fleshly, resembling the former and that to be produced. Endowed with all sense faculties and power of unimpeded motion, possessing karmic miraculous powers, visible to pure celestial eyes, of Bardo beings, of like nature. Such, then, is the teaching. That, radiant body, thus referred to as, resembling, the former and that to be produced, meaning that one will have a body just like the body of flesh and blood, the former human, propensity body, will also be endowed with certain signs and beauties of perfection such as beings of high destiny possess. This body, born of desire, is a thought form hallucination in the intermediate state, and it is called desire body. At that time, if thou art to be born as a Deva, visions of the Deva world will appear to thee. Similarly, wherever thou art to be born, if as an Asura, or a human being, or a brute, or a preta, or a being in hell, a vision of the place will appear to thee. Accordingly, the word former, in the quotation, implieth that prior to the 3½ days thou wilt have been thinking thou hadst the same sort of a body as the former body of flesh and blood, possessed by thee in the former existence because of habitual propensities, and the word produced is so used because, afterwards, the vision of thy future place of birth will appear to thee. Hence, the expression as a whole, former and that to be produced, referreth to these, i.e., the fleshly body just discarded and the fleshly body to be assumed at rebirth. At that time, follow not the visions which appear to thee. Be not attracted, be not weak, if, through weakness, thou be fond of them, thou wilt have to wander amidst the 6 lokas and suffer pain. Up to the other day thou wert unable to recognize the Coniad Bardo and hast had to wander down this far. Now, if thou art to hold fast to the real truth, thou must allow thy mind to rest undistractedly in the Nothing to do, nothing to hold condition of the unobscured, primordial, bright, void state of thine intellect, to which thou hast been introduced by the Guru. Thereby, thou wilt obtain liberation, without having to enter the door of the womb. But if thou art unable to know thyself, then, whosoever may be thy tutelary deity and thy Guru, meditate on them in a state of intense fondness and humble trust, as overshadowing the crown of thy head. This is of great importance. Be not distracted. 34. Instructions to the officiant, thus speak, and, if recognition result from that, liberation will be obtained, without need of the wandering in the 6 lokas. If, however, through influence of bad karma, recognition is made difficult, thereupon say as follows: O nobly born, again listen. Endowed with all sense faculties and power of unimpeded motion, implieth that although thou mayst have been, when living, blind of the eye, or deaf, or lame, yet on this after-death plane thine eyes will see forms, and thine ears will hear sounds, and all other sense organs of thine will be unimpaired and very keen and complete. Wherefore the Bardo body hath been spoken of as endowed with all sense faculties, that condition of existence in which thou thyself now art, is an indication that thou art deceased and wandering in the Bardo. Act so as to know this. Remember the teachings, remember the teachings. O nobly born, unimpeded motion implieth that thy present body being a desire body, thine intellect, having been separated from its seat, is not a body of gross matter, so that now thou hast the power to go right through any rock masses, hills, boulders, earth, houses, and empty Meru itself without being impeded. Excepting Bodh Gaya and the mother's womb, even the king of mountains, Nte Meru itself, can be passed through by thee, straight forwards and backwards unimpededly. That, too, is an indication that thou art wandering in the Sidpa Bardo. Remember thy Guru's teachings, and pray to the compassionate Lord. O nobly born, thou art actually endowed with the power of miraculous action, which is not, however, the fruit of any samadhi, but a power come to thee naturally, and, therefore, it is of the nature of karmic power. Thou art able in a moment to traverse the 4 continents round about Mr. Meru. Or thou canst instantaneously arrive in whatever place thou wishest. Thou hast the power of reaching there within the time which a man taketh to bend, or to stretch forth his hand. These various powers of illusion and of shape-shifting desire not. None is there, of such powers, which thou mayest desire which thou canst not exhibit. The ability to exercise them unimpededly existeth in thee now. Know this, and pray to the Guru. O nobly born, visible to pure celestial eyes of like nature implieth that those beings of like nature, being those of similar constitution, or level of knowledge, in the intermediate state, will individually see each other. For example, those beings who are destined to be born amongst devas will see each other, and so on. Dote not on them, seen by thee, but meditate upon the compassionate one. Visible to pure celestial eyes, also, implieth that the devas, being born pure, in virtue of merit, are visible to the pure celestial eyes of those who practice dhyana. These will not see them at all times. When mentally concentrated upon them, they see them; when not, they see them not. Sometimes, even when practicing dhyana, they are liable to become distracted, and not see them. Characteristics of existence in the intermediate state, O nobly born. The possessor of that sort of body will see places, familiarly known on the earth plane, and relatives, there, as one seeth another in dreams. 35. Thou sayest thy relatives and connections and speakest to them, but receivest no reply. Then, seeing them and thy family weeping, thou thinkest, I am dead. What shall I do? And feelest great misery, just like a fish cast out of water on red-hot embers. Such misery thou wilt be experiencing at present. But feeling miserable will avail thee nothing now. If thou hast a divine guru, pray to him. Pray to the tutelary deity, the compassionate one. Even though thou feelest attachment for thy relatives and connections, it will do thee no good. So be not attached. Pray to the compassionate Lord, thou shalt have not or sorrow, or of terror, or of awe. O nobly born! When thou art driven, hither and thither, by the ever-moving wind of karma, thine intellect, having no object upon which to rest, will be like a feather tossed about by the wind, riding on the horse of breath. Ceaselessly and involuntarily wilt thou be wandering about. To all those who are weeping, thou wilt say, Here I am, weep not. But they not hearing thee, thou wilt think, I am dead. And again, at that time, thou wilt be feeling very miserable. Be not miserable in that way. There will be a grey twilight-like light, both by night and by day, and at all times. In that kind of intermediate state thou wilt be either for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 weeks, until the 49th day. It hath been said that ordinarily the miseries of the Sitpa Bardo are experienced for about 22 days, but, because of the determining influence of karma, a fixed period is not assured. O nobly born, at about that time, the fierce wind of karma, terrific and hard to endure, will drive thee onwards, from behind, in dreadful gusts. Fear it not. That is thine own illusion. Thick awesome darkness will appear in front of thee continually, from the midst of which there will come such terror, producing utterances as strike, slay, and similar threats. Fear these not. In other cases, of persons of much evil karma, karmically bodiced flesh-eating Rakshasas, or demons, bearing various weapons will utter, strike, slay, and so on, making a frightful tumult. They will come upon one as if competing amongst themselves as to which of them should get hold of one. Apparitional illusions, too, of being pursued by various terrible beasts of prey will dawn. Snow, rain, darkness, fierce blasts of wind, and hallucinations of being pursued by many people likewise will come, and sounds as of mountains crumbling down, and of angry overflowing seas, and of the roaring of fire, and of fierce winds springing up. When these sounds come, one, being terrified by them, will flee before them in every direction, not caring whither one fleeth. But the way will be obstructed by 3 awful precipices, white, and black, and red. They will be terror-inspiring and deep, and one will feel as if one were about to fall down them. O nobly born, they are not really precipices, they are anger, lust, and stupidity. Know at that time that it is the Sitpa Bardo, in which thou art invoking, by name, the compassionate 1. Pray earnestly, thus, O compassionate Lord, and my Guru, and the precious Trinity, suffer it not that I, so and so by name, fall into the unhappy worlds. Act so as to forget this not. Others who have accumulated merit and devoted themselves sincerely to religion will experience various delightful pleasures and happiness and ease in full measure. But that class of neutral beings who have neither earned merit nor created bad karma will experience neither pleasure nor pain, but a sort of colorless stupidity of indifference. O nobly born, whatever cometh in that manner, whatever delightful pleasures thou mayst experience, be not attracted by them, dote not on them, think. May the Guru and the Trinity be worshipped with these merit-given delights. Abandon all dotings and hankerings. 36. Even though thou dost not experience pleasure or pain, but only indifference, keep thine intellect in the undistracted state of the meditation upon the great symbol, without thinking that thou art meditating. This is of vast importance. O nobly born, at that time, at bridgeheads, in temples, by stipas of 8 kinds, thou wilt rest a little while, but thou wilt not be able to remain there very long, for thine intellect hath been separated from thine earth-plane body. Because of this inability to loiter, thou oft-times wilt feel perturbed and vexed, and panic-stricken. At times, thy knower will be dim, at times, fleeting and incoherent. Thereupon this thought will occur to thee, alas! I am dead. What shall I do? And because of such thought the knower will become saddened and the heart chilled, and thou wilt experience infinite misery of sorrow. Since thou canst not rest in any one place, and feel impelled to go on, think not of various things, but allow the intellect to abide in its own, unmodified, state. As to food, only that which hath been dedicated to thee can be partaken of by thee, and no other food. As to friends at this time, there will be no certainty. These are the indications of the wandering about on the sitpa bardo of the mental body. At the time, happiness and misery will depend upon karma. Thou wilt see thine own home, the attendants, relatives, and the corpse, and think, now I am dead. What shall I do? And being oppressed with intense sorrow, the thought will occur to thee, oh what would I not give to possess a body? And so thinking, thou wilt be wandering hither and thither seeking a body, even though thou couldst enter thy dead body 9 times over. Owing to the long interval which thou hast passed in the Coniat Bardo, it will have been frozen if in winter, been decomposed if in summer, or, otherwise, thy relatives will have cremated it, or interred it, or thrown it into the water, or given it to the birds and beasts of prey. Wherefore, finding no place for thyself to enter into, thou wilt be dissatisfied and have the sensation of being squeezed into cracks and crevices amidst rocks and boulders. The experiencing of this sort of misery occurs in the intermediate state when seeking rebirth. Even though thou seekest a body, thou wilt gain nothing but trouble. Put aside the desire for a body, and permit thy mind to abide in the state of resignation, and act so as to abide therein. By thus being set face to face, one obtaineth liberation from the bardo. The judgment, instructions to the officiant, yet, again, it may be possible that because of the influence of bad karma one will not recognize even thus. Therefore, call the deceased by name, and speak as follows, O nobly born, so-and-so, listen. That thou art suffering so cometh from thine own karma, it is not due to anyone else's, it is by thine own karma. Accordingly, pray earnestly to the precious Trinity, that will protect thee. If thou neither prayest nor knowest how to meditate upon the great symbol nor upon any tutelary deity, the good genius, who was born simultaneously with thee, will come now and count out thy good deeds with white pebbles, and the evil genius, who was born simultaneously with thee, will come and count out thy evil deeds with black pebbles. Thereupon, thou wilt be greatly 37. Frightened, awed, and terrified, and wilt tremble, and thou wilt attempt to tell lies, saying, I have not committed any evil deed. Then the Lord of Death will say, I will consult the mirror of karma. So saying, he will look in the mirror, wherein every good and evil act is vividly reflected. Lying will be of no avail. Then, one of the executive furies of the Lord of Death will place round thy neck a rope and drag thee along. He will cut off thy head, extract thy heart, pull out thy intestines, lick up thy brain, drink thy blood, eat thy flesh, and gnaw thy bones, but thou wilt be incapable of dying. Although thy body be hacked to pieces, it will revive again. The repeated hacking will cause intense pain and torture. Even at the time that the pebbles are being counted out, be not frightened, nor terrified, tell no lies, and fear not the Lord of Death. Thy body, being a mental body, is incapable of dying even though beheaded and quartered. In reality, thy body is of the nature of voidness, thou needst not be afraid. The lords of death are thine own hallucinations. Thy desire body is a body of propensities, and void. Voidness cannot injure voidness, the qualityless cannot injure the qualityless. Apart from one's own hallucinations. In reality, there are no such things existing outside oneself as Lord of Death, or God, or demon, or the bull-headed spirit of death. Act so as to recognize this. At this time, act so as to recognize that thou art in the bardo. Meditate upon the samadhi of the great symbol. If thou dost not know how to meditate, then merely analyze with care the real nature of that which is frightening thee. In reality, it is not formed into anything, but is a voidness which is the Dharmakaya. That voidness is not of the nature of the voidness of nothingness, but a voidness at the true nature of which thou feelest awed, and before which thine intellect shineth clearly and more lucidly, that is the state of mind of the Sambhogakaya. In that state wherein thou art existing, there is being experienced by thee, in an unbearable intensity, voidness and brightness inseparable, the voidness bright by nature and the brightness by nature void, and the brightness inseparable from the voidness. A state of the primordial, or unmodified intellect, which is the Adhikaya. And the power of this, shining unobstructedly, will radiate everywhere. It is the Nirmanakaya. O nobly born, listen unto me undistractedly. By merely recognizing the four kayas, thou art certain to obtain perfect emancipation in any of them. Be not distracted. The line of demarcation between Buddhas and sentient beings lieth herein. This moment is one of great importance, if thou shouldst be distracted now. It will require innumerable eons of time for thee to come out of the quagmire of misery. A saying, the truth of which is applicable, is 38. In a moment of time, a marked differentiation is created. In a moment of time, perfect enlightenment is obtained. Till the moment which hath just passed, all this bardo hath been dawning upon thee, and yet thou hast not recognized, because of being distracted. On this account, thou hast experienced all the fear and terror. Shouldst thou become distracted now, the cords of divine compassion of the compassionate eyes will break, and thou wilt go into the place from which there is no immediate liberation. Therefore, be careful. even though thou hast not recognized ere this, despite thus being set face to face, thou wilt recognize and obtain liberation here. Instructions to the officiant. If it be an illiterate boor who knoweth not how to meditate, then say this: O nobly born, if thou knowest not how thus to meditate, act so as to remember the compassionate one, and the Sangha, the Dharma, and the Buddha, and pray. Think of all these fears and terrifying apparitions as being thine own tutelary deity, or as the compassionate one. Bring to thy recollection the mystic name that hath been given thee at the time of thy sacred initiation when thou wert a human being, and the name of thy Guru, and tell them to the righteous King of the Lord, of death. Even though thou fallest down precipices, thou wilt not be hurt. Avoid awe and terror, the all-determining influence of thought. Instructions to the officiant say that, for by such setting face to face, despite the previous liberation ought surely to be obtained here. Possible, however, liberation may not be obtained even after that setting face to face. An earnest and continued application being essential, again calling the deceased by name, speak as follows: O nobly born! Thy immediate experiences will be of momentary joys followed by momentary sorrows, of great intensity, like the taut and relaxed, mechanical actions of catapults. Be not in the least attached to the joys, nor displeased by the sorrows of that. If thou art to be born on a higher plane, the vision of that higher plane will be dawning upon thee. Thy living relatives may, by way of dedication for the benefit of the deceased, be sacrificing many animals, and performing religious ceremonies, and giving alms. Thou, because of thy vision not being purified, mayst be inclined to grow very angry at their actions and bring about, at this moment, thy birth in hell, whatever those left behind thee may be doing. Act thou so that no angry thought can arise in thee, and meditate upon love for them. Furthermore, even if thou feelest attached to the worldly goods thou hast left behind, or because of seeing such worldly goods of thine in the possession of other people and being enjoyed by them, thou shouldst feel attached to them through weakness, or feel angry with thy successors, that feeling will affect the psychological moment in such a way that, even though thou wert destined to be born on higher and happier planes, thou wilt be obliged to be born in hell, or in the world of pretas, or unhappy ghosts. On the other hand, even if thou art attached to worldly goods left behind, thou wilt not be able to possess them, and they will be of no use to thee. Therefore, abandon weakness and 39. Attachment for them, cast them away wholly, renounce them from thy heart. No matter who may be enjoying thy worldly goods, have no feeling of miserliness, but be prepared to renounce them willingly. Think that thou art offering them to the precious Trinity and to thy Guru, and abide in the feeling of unattachment, devoid of weakness, of desire. Again, when any recitation of the Kamkani mantra is being made on thy behalf as a funeral rite, or when any rite for the absolving of bad karma liable to bring about thy birth in lower regions is being performed for thee, the sight of their being conducted in an incorrect way, mixed up with sleep and distraction and non-observance of the vows and lack of purity, on the part of any officiant, and such things indicating levity, all of which thou wilt be able to see because thou art endowed with limited karmic power of prescience, thou mayst feel lack of faith and entire disbelief in thy religion. Thou Wilt be able to apprehend any fear and fright, any black actions, irreligious conduct, and incorrectly recited rituals. In thy mind thou mayst think, alas! Thy are, indeed, playing me false. Thinking thus, thou wilt be extremely depressed, and, through great resentment, thou wilt acquire disbelief and loss of faith, instead of affection and humble trustfulness. This affecting the psychological moment, thou wilt be certain to be born in one of the miserable states. Such thought will not only be of no use to thee, but will do thee great harm. However incorrect the ritual and improper the conduct of the priests performing thy funeral rites, think, what? Mine own thoughts must be impure. How can it be possible that the words of the Buddha should be incorrect? It is like the reflection of the blemishes on mine own face which I see in a mirror. Mine own thoughts must, indeed, be impure. As for these, i.e., the priests, the Sangha is their body, the Dharma their utterance, and in their mind they are the Buddha in reality. I will take refuge in them. Thus thinking, put thy trust in them and exercise sincere love towards them. Then whatever is done for thee by those left behind will truly tend to thy benefit. Therefore the exercise of that love is of much importance, do not forget this. Again, even if thou wert to be born in one of the miserable states and the light of that miserable state shone upon thee, yet by thy successors and relatives performing white religious rites unmixed with evil actions, and the abbots and learned priests devoting themselves, body, speech, and mind, to the performance of the correct meritorious rituals, the delight from thy feeling greatly cheered at seeing them will, by its own virtue, so affect the psychological moment that, even though thou deservest a birth in the unhappy states, there will be brought about thy birth on a higher and happier plane. Therefore, thou shouldst not create impious thoughts, but exercise pure affection and humble faith towards all impartially. This is highly important. Hence be extremely careful. O nobly born, to sum up, thy present intellect in the intermediate state having no firm object whereon to depend, being of little weight and continuously in motion, whatever thought occur to thee now, be it pious or impious, will wield great power. Therefore think not in thy mind of impious things, but recall any devotional exercises, or, if thou wert unaccustomed to any such exercises, show forth pure affection and humble faith, pray to the compassionate one, or to thy tutelary deities, with full resolve, utter this prayer, alas! While wandering alone, separated from loving friends, when the vacuous, reflected boy of mine own mental ideas dawneth upon me, may the Buddhas, vouchsafing their power of compassion, grant that there shall be no fear, awe, or terror in the bardo. 40 When experiencing miseries, through the power of evil karma, may the tutelary deities dispel the miseries. When the thousand thunders of the sound of reality reverberate, may they all be sounds of the 6 syllables. When karma follows, without there being any protector, may the compassionate one protect me, I pray. When experiencing the sorrows of karmic propensities here, may the radiance of the happy clear light of samadhi shine upon me. Earnest prayer in this form will be sure to guide thee along. Thou mayst rest assured that thou wilt not be deceived. Of great importance is this, through that being recited, again recollection cometh, and recognition and liberation will be achieved. The dawning of the lights of the 6 lokas. Instructions to the officiant, yet, though this instruction be so oft repeated, if recognition be difficult, because of the influence of evil karma, much benefit will come from repeating these settings face to face many times over. Once more, then, call the deceased by name, and speak as follows. O nobly born, if thou hast been unable to apprehend the above, henceforth the body of the past life will become more and more dim, and the body of the future life will become more and more clear. Saddened at this, thou wilt think, oh, what misery I am undergoing. Now, whatever body I am to get, I shall go and seek it. So thinking, thou wilt be going hither and thither, ceaselessly and distractedly. Then there will shine upon thee the lights of the 6 samsaric lokas. The light of that place wherein thou art to be born, through power of karma, will shine most prominently. O nobly born, listen. If thou desirest to know what those 6 lights are, there will shine upon thee a dull white light from the Deva world, a dull green light from the Asura world, a dull yellow light from the human world, a dull blue light from the brute world, a dull red light from the Preta-Wovid, and a smoke-colored light from the hell world. At that time, by the power of karma, thine own body will partake of the color of the light of the place wherein thou art to be born. O nobly born! The special art of these teachings is especially important at this moment, whichever light shineth upon thee now. Meditate upon it as being the compassionate one, from whatever place the light cometh, consider that place to be, or to exist in, the compassionate one. This is an exceedingly profound art, it will prevent birth. Or whosoever thy tutelary deity may be, meditate upon the form for much time, as being apparent yet non-existent in reality, like a form produced by a magician. That is called the pure illusory form. Then let the visualization of the tutelary deity melt away from the extremities, till nothing at all remaineth visible of it. And put thyself in the state of the clearness and the voidness, which thou canst not conceive as something, and abide in that state for a little while. Again meditate upon the tutelary deity, again meditate upon the clear light, do this alternately. Afterwards, allow thine own intellect also to melt away gradually, beginning from the extremities. Wherever the ether pervadeth, consciousness pervadeth, wherever consciousness pervadeth, the Dharmakaya pervadeth. Abide tranquilly in the uncreated state of the Dharmakaya. In that state, birth will be obstructed and perfect enlightenment gained. 41. The process of rebirth, the closing of the door of the womb, instructions to the officiant, again. If through great weakness in devotions and lack of familiarity, one be not able to understand, illusion may overcome one, and one will wander to the doors of wombs. The instruction for the closing of the womb doors becometh very important. Call the deceased by name, and say this. O nobly born, if thou hast not understood the above at this moment, through the influence of karma, thou wilt have the impression that thou art either ascending, or moving along on a level, or going downwards. Thereupon, meditate upon the compassionate one. Remember. Then, as said above, gusts of wind, and icy blasts, hailstorms, and darkness, an impression of being pursued by many people will come upon thee. On fleeing from these hallucinations, those who are unendowed with meritorious karma will have the impression of fleeing into places of misery. Those who are endowed with meritorious karma will have the impression of arriving in places of happiness. Thereupon, O nobly born, in whatever continent or place thou art to be born, the signs of that birthplace will shine upon thee then. For this moment there are several vital profound teachings. Listen undistractedly. Even though thou hast not apprehended by the above settings face to face, here, thou wilt because, even those who are very weak in devotions will recognize the signs. Therefore listen. Instructions to the officiant. Now it is very important to employ the methods of closing the womb door. Wherefore it is necessary to exercise the utmost care. There are two chief ways of closing: preventing the being who would enter from entering, and closing the womb door which might be entered. Method of preventing entry into a womb. The instructions for preventing the being from entering are thus: O nobly born, so and so by name, whosoever may have been thy tutelary deity, tranquilly meditate upon him as upon the reflection of the moon in water, apparent yet non-existent, as a moon, like a magically produced illusion. If thou hast no special tutelary, meditate either upon the compassionate Lord or upon me, and, with this in mind, meditate tranquilly. Then, causing the visualized form of the tutelary deity to melt away from the extremities, meditate, without any thought forming, upon the vacuous clear light. This is a very profound art. In virtue of it, a womb is not entered. 42. The first method of closing the womb door: in that manner meditate. But even though this be found inadequate to prevent thee from entering into a womb, and if thou findest thyself ready to enter into one, then there is the profound teaching for closing the womb door. Listen now unto it, when, at this time, alas, the Sitpa Bardo is dawning upon oneself, holding in mind one single resolution: persist in joining up the chain of good karma, close up the womb door, and remember the opposition. This is a time when earnestness and pure love are necessary. Abandon jealousy, and meditate upon the Guru Father Mother. Repeat this, from thine own mouth, distinctly, and remember its meaning vividly, and meditate upon it. The putting of this into practice is essential. The significance of the above teaching, when, at this time, the Sitpa Bardo is dawning upon me, or upon oneself, is that now thou art wandering in the Sitpa Bardo. As a sign of this, if thou lookest into water, or into mirrors, thou wilt see no reflection of thy face or body, nor doth thy body cast any shadow. Thou hast discarded now thy gross material body of flesh and blood. These are the indications that thou art wandering about in the Sitpa Bardo. At this time, thou must form, without distraction, one single resolve in thy mind. The forming of one single resolve is very important now. It is like directing the course of a horse by the use of the reins. Whatever thou desirest will come to pass. Think not upon evil actions which might turn the course of thy mind. Remember thy spiritual relationship with the reader of this Bardo Thodol, or with any one from whom thou hast received teachings, initiation, or spiritual authorization for reading religious texts while in the human world, and persevere in going on with good acts. This is very essential. Be not distracted. The boundary line between going upwards or going downwards is here now. If thou givest way to indecision for even a second, thou wilt have to suffer misery for a long, long time. This is the moment. Hold fast to one single purpose. Persistently join up the chain of good acts. Thou hast come now to the time of closing the womb door. This is a time when earnestness and pure love are necessary, which implieth that now the time hath come when, first of all, the womb door should be closed, there being 5 methods of closing. Bear this well at heart. The second method of closing the womb door: O nobly born, at this time thou wilt see visions of males and females in union. When thou sayest them, remember to withhold thyself from going between them. Regarding the father and mother as thy guru. and the Divine Mother, meditate upon them and bow down, humbly exercise thy faith, offer up mental worship with great fervency, and resolve that thou wilt request of them religious guidance. By that resolution alone, the womb ought certainly to be closed, but if it is not closed even by that, and thou findest thyself ready to enter into it, meditate upon the divine Guru Father Mother, as upon any tutelary deity, or upon the compassionate tutelary and Shakti, and meditating upon them, worship 43 them with mental offerings. Resolve earnestly that thou wilt request of them a boon. By this, the womb door ought to be closed. The third method of closing the womb door, still, if it be not closed even by that, and thou findest thyself ready to enter the womb. The third method of repelling attachment and repulsion is hereby shown unto thee. There are 4 kinds of birth: birth by egg, birth by womb, supernormal birth, and birth by heat and moisture. Amongst these 4, birth by egg and birth by womb agree in character. As above said, the visions of males and females in union will appear. If, at that time, one entereth into the womb through the feelings of attachment and repulsion, one may be born either as a horse, a fowl, a dog, or a human being.